Hey Michigan fans, Keith here from Lewis Jewelers, and we are super excited to be able to cheer on all the student athletes that will be on the field and the courts this season. But just like Michigan sports, special moments have not been canceled. Come into Lewis Jewelers or visit lewisjewelers.com so our team can help you celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, or your just because moments. Go Blue!
Lewis Jewelers, celebrate the moments.
Welcome to the Wolverine.com podcast. This is the Maize and Blue Breakdown. I'm Clayton Sayfie with Austin Fox. We have a little extra pep in our step this week because it's game week. We're 2 days away, just over 48 hours from kickoff when we're recording right now, Thursday afternoon. Man, we never thought we'd get here at a certain point. We're here, 2 days away. Cross your fingers, nothing crazy happens, no fluke, but Michigan is set to head out on Friday to Minneapolis, and hopefully, if you're a Michigan fan, the Wolverines will pull out a win and not lose their first game in Minneapolis since 1977. Austin Fox, am I correct in saying that you have a little extra pep in your step this week on this podcast?
Absolutely, man. How do you not at this point? We didn't know if we'd get here, but it's going to be good to have Michigan football back on Saturday. Chris Ballas will be there bringing you live coverage, so keep it locked here at the Wolverine because it's going to be a heck of a night and hopefully a heck of a game that Michigan comes out on top on.
Yeah, the first start for Joe Milton. But speaking of Michigan football being back, we decided to run a flash sale over at thewolverine.com. Ahead of this game, the offer ends at kickoff, so sign up now. You can use promo code UM12 for one and get your first year of the Wolverine.com subscription for just $1 per month, $12 for the entire year. That's an annual savings of over 87%. So put in that promo code UM12FOR1, and you can get your first year at thewolverine.com for just $12. So go do that right now if you're not already subscribed. You can stay up to date on everything Michigan football by going to thewolverine.com and sign up using that promo code UM12FOR1. Boom. So now we're talking Michigan football. Heading into this game, we'll get into some of the specifics here. We will talk about some keys to the game, what Michigan needs to do to come out with a victory on Saturday night, come 11:30 Saturday night. How will the Wolverines come out with a victory? What do they need to do? We'll get into that, and then we'll also give some college football picks. And it's beautiful looking at the college football board and seeing Big Ten football back. We have a game on Friday night, Wisconsin-Illinois, which will be an interesting one. But we'll start with Michigan-Minnesota. Game day there in Minneapolis on Saturday morning. Of course, a 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, Maria Taylor on the call. Austin, prime time. Michigan's a 3-point favorite. I saw it get up to 3.5 points at one point. But this is a Michigan team expected to win the game. It's going to be close. Wolverines have not fared well in road games in the season opener under Jim Harbaugh, losing in 2015 and 2018 to Utah and Notre Dame, respectively. But this one's a little bit different in that, you know, Michigan's got some excitement around it. Minnesota maybe have a couple guys out due to COVID. PJ Fleck did not give any specifics on that in his Monday press conference. And then some rumblings around two of the offensive linemen, Daniel Falele and Curtis Dunlap, both on the right side of the offensive line, could be out. I think they both opted out heading into the year, then opted back in. So there might be some problems there for them for whatever reason. Again, Fleck didn't get into specifics when asked about those situations either. So, just your gut feeling here about how this game's going to go with the fact that some of those guys may be out and, Michigan breaking in a new quarterback in Joe Milton.
Yeah, I talked to Sean Williams of thegopherreport.com today, actually, who's a Minnesota insider and covers this team. And he said he does not expect Curtis Dunlap or Daniel Falele to play on Saturday night. The entire right side of Minnesota's offensive line, they returned all 5 starters when you include those two. But if those two are out, which Williams expects them to be, that would be a huge loss. Literally, Falele, I think, is right around 6'9", 400 pounds. So that would be a blow to this Minnesota offensive line. If those two don't play, it's really hard to know what to expect from this Michigan team on Saturday night. You talked about it a little bit, but they have not fared well in road games against ranked teams during Jim Harbaugh's tenure here. They've only beaten one ranked team on the road since he got here in 2015. That's really embarrassing to say, but in 2018, that win at Michigan State is his only ranked road win during that time. But I think this Michigan team will have a solid chance to pick up another road win over a ranked team on Saturday night. Minnesota did lose a lot from last year, and I think most are expecting them to take a slight step back from that team that won 11 games last year. But this Michigan team has some question marks of its own as well. Joe Milton, specifically at quarterback, making his first ever start. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's only thrown 11 career passes. It's really hard to know what to expect from him. I could see him playing really well and taking care of the ball and not making many mistakes, or I could see him making several mistakes. He's thrown 2 picks in his career in only 11 attempts, so he needs to take care of the ball. And Michigan's offensive line as well is breaking in 4 new starters. So it's going to be crucial for them to play well and give Milton time to throw in the pocket, because if the offensive line doesn't perform well, then it could have a domino effect on this entire Michigan offense. They need to be able to run the ball as well with Zach Charbonnet and Chris Evans and Hassan Haskins. So I'm really not all that concerned about the defense, including the secondary, even though they are breaking in 2 new starters at cornerback, and they'll be facing an elite receiver in Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, who had well over 1,000 yards last year. So the offense is what I will be keeping an eye on Saturday night to see how Joe Milton and this young offensive line and even Michigan's group of receivers who lost Nico Collins and Donovan Peoples-Jones and Tariq Black from last year. I'll be keeping an eye to see on how they perform and this Michigan offense as a whole, because I'll be honest, I really don't know what to expect from this group.
Yeah, and you mentioned the cornerbacks just a second ago. That's kind of one of the things that we've debated back and forth on. I think I'm concerned about the cornerbacks, especially when you're going up in game 1 against the reigning Big Ten wide receiver of the year and Rashad Bateman. I know he might end up being the guy that everyone talked about leading up to this opener, and then he has 3 catches for 40 yards or something like that. But this is a good player. He's physical. He can catch the ball over defenders. He's not necessarily the quickest guy, which that would scare me if he was like a Jerry Jeudy type quick and you just had Vince Gray out there as the number 1 corner. And then a bunch of unproven guys at the second spot. But it's going to be interesting how they defend Rashad Bateman, how they defend this passing attack with Tanner Morgan as the quarterback. Threw for over 3,000 yards last year, 30 touchdowns. So he is an elite passer. He was all Big Ten second team. It's going to be interesting how they defend that. Brad Hawkins, Michigan senior safety this week, said that challenge is on Vince Gray to shut down Rashad Bateman, and others have said similar things. But then at the same time, could that be a smokescreen, and could it be where they're going to bracket him a ton, double team him a ton, or is it going to be a case where sophomore safety Dax Hill ends up over him quite a bit of the game? I could see it getting to that point if they're starting to lose him in coverage with Gray or other guys on him. So there's a lot of questions to be answered. You said on a couple things that you're going to keep your eye on. There's so many things to keep your eye on in this game, don't you think? I mean, just the individual matchups when you look at Bateman and how Michigan's going to defend him. Obviously, everyone's going to be watching closely. They're going to be watching those receivers, as you mentioned, after losing 3 of the top guys from last year. You lose Sean McEwen as well, who started, I think, 8 games at tight end. So you have Nick Eubanks and Eric All as the top contenders there. So many things to keep an eye on. It's going to be weird to even just be watching Michigan football and seeing those uniforms out there once again.
Yeah, it will be weird. It's been so long since we've had the luxury of seeing that. And you touched on it, but there are so many things to keep an eye on. On Saturday night, you talked a little bit about Rashad Bateman. He had the luxury of having Tyler Johnson alongside him last year, another 1,000-yard receiver. So opponents really had to key in on both receivers. They couldn't focus on just one guy, but now that Tyler Johnson is gone, I think that all the focus will be on Rashad Bateman. So I think that that's going to really have a huge effect in this game. When you can key in on one guy like that in Bateman, I think that's going to really have an impact on Minnesota's offense. Brad Hawkins said it's going to be up to Vince Gray to slow him down, but I do think it'll be kind of a by-committee approach with Vince Gray and Hawkins and Hill at safety, and even that other corner spot who I had been riding the DJ Turner hype train for a little bit, but I'm starting to think that they're going to throw in a few guys in there at that spot, whether it be Jamon Green or Jalen Perry or Sammy Foston. So it's going to take all hands on deck in that Michigan secondary to slow down Rashad Bateman, because Minnesota's third leading receiver last year was Chris Autman-Bell, and he only had 371 yards. So there was a significant drop-off behind Johnson and Bateman. So all the focus is going to be on Bateman, and I really would not be surprised if this Michigan secondary contains him and limits him to 60 or 70 or 80 yards or so. He's going to get a few catches, and he's going to get his yards, but as long as you can contain him and make sure he doesn't go off for 130 yards or anything like that, I think this Michigan secondary is going to be in pretty good shape on Saturday.
And even if he does go off for 130 yards, as long as you keep him from scoring a 70-yard touchdown or something like that and make them drive the length of the field. One thing we haven't mentioned when it comes to stopping that Minnesota passing attack, if you don't want Vince Gray on an island for a long time, if you don't want the safeties to have to come over the top and make plays on this Minnesota passing attack, you get to the quarterback. You don't even let Tanner Morgan get a throw off, or at least you don't let him get a clean throw off. That's going to come down to Aiden Hutchinson, Kwity Paye on the ends, and man, is there a better duo in the Big Ten? I don't think so. I don't think you think so either, and possibly in college football. So this is a great defensive end tandem that Michigan has. You want to see some guys emerge in the middle. We like what Carlo Kemp brings to the table. Is Chris Hinton going to be the X factor on the defensive line? Like I mentioned, a million things to be watching here in this game, and it's just exciting that we have Michigan football to watch. But that front four, if they can get pressure without having to blitz, you can leave some more guys in coverage. And it could be a long night for the Minnesota offense if it plays out like that. But it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's go over to the offensive side of the ball. We've mentioned Joe Milton a few times. What are the realistic expectations for him, Austin? Because you're not going to necessarily, he's got the big arm, but you're not going deep on every play. You're not going to go an air raid attack just because you have a quarterback who can sling it all over the yard. You have a good stable of running backs. You have an offensive line that needs to gel together, but has quite a bit of talent there. So you could lean on the run game possibly. What are the expectations for Joe Milton? What do you think Michigan's going to have to do to keep him comfortable, keep him upright on Saturday night?
Yeah, the offensive line has to play well and protect him, and I don't think that we're going to see the Michigan coaching staff have Joe Milton air the ball out on Saturday night or anything like that, like some people may be expecting. I think it's just key for him to take care of the ball. That's priority number one. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. Don't throw picks. As long as he takes care of the ball, completes the passes that he should be completing, the shorter ones, the 5, 10, 15-yard passes, completes at least 60% of his throws on the night, doesn't turn the ball over, then I think it's going to be a success for him. He doesn't have to go out there and throw for 300 yards or anything like that, or even 250. If Milton finishes completing 60% of his passes with 200 yards or so and no interceptions, then I think that should be considered a successful night for him, when considering this is his first collegiate start and he's still somewhat of a youngster, seeing as how he's only a redshirt sophomore.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be less fireworks and more precision and, just trying to drive the ball down the field. At the same time, I do have a prediction that he's going to hit on a deep ball for a touchdown in this game, and I think those stats are going to look pretty nice at the end of the night. Like you mentioned, if he can stay away from the big mistake, if he can not throw interceptions and not turn the ball over, this is going to be a successful first outing for Joe Milton as Michigan's starting quarterback. And then the expectations go sky high, as Michigan fans tend to do. They'll overreact to one game, good or bad. That's going to happen here on Saturday night, whichever way it goes. So that's going to be interesting to watch, just how much we expect from Joe Milton going forward based on his first performance. It'll be that small sample size that we'll be looking at. And, it's going to be a long season, not as long as normal, but he's going to have some time to really make his mark on this Michigan football team here. How much do you think they're going to lean on that running game? Because you got 4 really solid options at running back, a really proven one in Chris Evans, and then you could argue that Charbonnet and Haskins are also proven as well. Then you got the freshman, the wild card Blake Corum, who we're hearing great things about.
Yeah, I think they're going to rely on these running backs quite a bit, not just because they are breaking in a new starting quarterback in Joe Milton, but because they have the ability to lean on these running backs. We did an article on this 2 weeks ago, but these are the best group of running backs that Michigan has had since 2007. I think you could strongly make that case. They have a little bit of everything in that backfield. You have the power with Charbonnet and Haskins. You have the speed in Blake Corum. You have the shiftiness and the veteran presence in fifth-year senior Chris Evans. So it's a group that has a little bit of everything. That's where the offensive line comes into play as well and will be a huge factor, because if they don't block well and they're not ready to go up against a solid Minnesota front seven, then it would be difficult for this Michigan offense to get anything going. It's absolutely crucial that Michigan's able to run the ball on Saturday night in Minneapolis. So that way play action works and you don't put all the pressure on Joe Milton's shoulders. So if they can get at least somewhat of a consistent running game going with the four guys that I just mentioned, that'll open up this entire offense. It'll make Joe Milton's night easier. So I'm really excited for these Michigan running backs, not just on Saturday night, but for the year as a whole. I could see three guys in this group hitting the 500-yard mark, whether it be Charbonnet, Haskins, Evans. I think Blake Corum will have a role as well. I think this is going to be a really good group of running backs, and I think them setting the tone on the ground is going to open the door for Milton in this passing attack to have success.
And that leads me right into the keys of the game. What does Michigan have to do to win this game? If they do blank, they will win this game. And that was mine, is keeping Milton out of long third downs, keeping them out of the chance to make a big mistake like we talked about earlier, where he has to throw it's third down and 12 and he has to, make a long throw to the sideline or something like that could get intercepted. Keep him out of those situations, gain yardage on first and second down. And I'm not just saying to pound the ball. I think that you can, pick up some of those easy yardage, and completions on first and second down in the passing game as well to kind of get yourself in third and manageable. Or heck, don't even get to third down. Just move the chains on first and second down. I know that's the hope. And then my second key to the game is to win the turnover margin, win the turnover battle. I may sound like a coach when saying that, but it is the number one stat that leads to a victory, that correlates to actually winning a football game, is winning the turnover battle. Michigan has to do that on Saturday night. I'm not going to say has to do that. I think they could lose the turnover battle by one. And probably come out with a victory still, but this is not going to be an easy challenge on Saturday night. What would a couple keys to victory be for you?
Yeah, I'm with you in that. There isn't one or two things that they absolutely have to do to win the game. I don't like minimizing it down like that. But with that being said, turnovers are crucial. You simply can't turn the ball over at a high rate. It reminds me of this 2017 Michigan team a little bit when they turned the ball over at a high rate. And even though they had an elite defense, it really didn't matter because the offense really struggled all year and they wound up going 8-5. So I think that on Saturday night, if they're able to at least move the ball and then cash in with touchdowns in the red zone, when they get in, they'll have a very good chance of coming out on top in this one. Forced turnovers as well on defense. That would be crucial. If you can stall Minnesota's drives with turnovers and give your offense good field position, that would go a long way in coming out on top in this one. So Tanner Morgan did throw 7 picks last year, Minnesota's redshirt junior quarterback. I know that's not a high amount, but it showed that he was turnover prone at times. So turnovers are going to be the key in almost any football game, and I think you can point to that one as well in this one. And again, Joe Milton and this Michigan offense getting in a rhythm and at least moving the ball so that if your drive does stall and you punt, you're not setting your defense up with terrible field position and allowing Minnesota to start at midfield, for example. It's pinning them deep in their own territory and letting what I expect to be an elite Michigan defense do its job on Saturday night and make it very, very difficult for this Minnesota offense to move the ball.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. Let's take a look at the season as a whole. So I posted a thread over at the Wolverine.com message board. Again, you can use that promo code UM1241 to get your first year for just $12. I posted a thread yesterday saying that my random prediction of the season is that Aiden Hutchinson will get an interception. He was so good at finding the ball, like keeping his eyes up when he knew he wasn't going to get to the quarterback and putting his hands up and getting batted passes. So good at it last year, and he came close to picking a couple balls off. My random prediction was that he was going to get an interception, possibly score on it, because I was actually watching the Notre Dame game yesterday from last year, and he had one. I tweeted the clip out and put it on the message board as well, where he batted it down and he almost got his hand on it, almost gripped it. If he had it, he was walking in for a touchdown. I mean, there was nobody there, so he can get himself in those spots. I think he was close a ton last year. I think he's going to get one this season. Do you have a random prediction that just something you think is going to happen, something a little out of the ordinary, but we're going to see? And, I mean, not many things are out of the ordinary this year, so I guess probably, these things won't really happen.
This one might sound kind of stupid, but I'm going to say fifth-year senior kicker Quinn Nordine nails at least two 50-yard field goals on the year, a minimum of 50 yards. I think he hit a 57-yarder, if I'm correct, in that bowl game against Alabama last year. So he has one of the strongest legs in all of college football. And I think one of the reasons that he didn't necessarily make as many kicks last year, some were hoping, is that he was splitting time with Jake Moody. But he ended the year by making his final 10 field goals, and I expect him to be the guy this year, early at least, assuming he doesn't struggle. I expect him to hold on to that job. So, random prediction of the year, Quinn Nordine makes at least two 50-plus yard field goals in 2020.
Does any team have a quarterback with a bigger arm and a kicker with a bigger leg than Michigan?
Off the top of my head, absolutely not. There are very, very few quarterbacks in college football who can throw the ball 80 yards in the air like Joe Milton has been seen doing. So I really would be surprised if there are any others who has a stronger combination at quarterback and kicker like Michigan does.
Yeah, Quinn Nordine's got that rocket laser leg. He's the Shane Morris of kickers, right?
The Shane Morris of kickers. I don't know if that's a good thing, man. Is that a compliment? I don't know if you want to be compared to Shane Morris, but hey, he seems like kind of an odd dude, so he'll probably take it.
Shout out to Rockford, Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh sleeping over in Rockford to get Quinn Nordine. But yeah, he got some strength there. The right arm of Joe Milton and the right leg of Quinn Nordine. And like you mentioned, don't count out Jake Moody. The punter battle is going to be one to watch as well. Jim Harbaugh wasn't ready to name a starter at kicker or punter between Brad Robbins and Will Hart. And then who's going to kick off? We had kind of heard that Quinn Nordine was working on his kickoff skills, actually working on his punting skills as well this offseason in preparation for the next level. So, Jake Moody's been really good at kicking off, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Quinn Nordine kicking off either. So I said it earlier, I've said it a couple times, like the amount of things we're going to be watching and being like, okay, Quinn Nordine's kicking off or Jake Moody's kicking off. And, even down to the punter battle, there's things to watch here in this game.
Yeah, I think that's the case with any season opener. And since we're talking about special teams, one of the most intriguing aspects on special teams that I'll be keeping an eye on is who returns punts. Donovan Peoples-Jones did that the past 3 years, and I think Ronnie Bell was his backup last year, but I don't think there are any guarantees that Bell's the guy this year. Jay Harbaugh was asked this question a few weeks ago, and he named about 6 or 7 candidates who could return punts for Michigan this season. So that's something I'll be keeping an eye on. Giles Jackson, Mike Sainer still, Ronnie Bell's in the mix there. I think there are several guys who we could see go out there and do that on Saturday night. So that's something that I'll be certainly keeping an eye on as well.
AJ Henning, the dark horse there.
Sure.
The freshman receiver. He, in the hype video that Michigan football posted last week, he was the one returning a punt. But I mean, that was probably one rep, but still.
You want speed back there, man. Peoples-Jones was fast, but I don't think he was the fastest guy in the world. If you have speed and elusiveness at that punt returner spot, man, you get those hidden yardage, and that could be huge in a game like this where every yard is crucial.
Absolutely. Jabril Peppers, I mean, he would get those yards. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch these special teams battles play out for Michigan. And you said, it's with any season opener. It just feels more so than most season openers, because you already have the main storylines of a new starting quarterback in Joe Milton, but you only have a few starters returning on both sides of the ball for Michigan. The kicker and punter battles, even the long snapper battle. We had Cam Cheeseman opt out of the season. So it is going to be quite a scene on Saturday night. We're not only going to be watching Michigan football, which we thought would never happen this year, at least at one time back in August, but we're going to be watching a million things and keep an eye on those. So it's going to be awesome. We are over 48 hours here until kickoff. Let's get into some of our college football picks. And like we mentioned at the top, I mean, we're talking about a Big Ten schedule that makes the college football slate for Saturday 20 times better than it has been the last 8 weeks. So it's incredible to watch. So we're going to name off some of those games, give our picks against the spread, and mostly Big Ten games. There's really only 1 or 2 games that are even noteworthy outside of the Big Ten this year. Maybe they would have been noteworthy the last few weeks without the Big Ten, but now that the Big Ten is back, all eyes are going to be on the Midwest and with the return of Michigan and Big Ten football. But first, I want to remind you that this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there's never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you're guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 five-star reviews. Give Josh Yoder a call today at 480-378-0498 or email Josh directly at jyoder@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Incorporated, equal access lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. College football picks, Austin. First of all, I mean, how excited are you to watch? You know, as a sports writer, you get a lot of complaints by the sports writer community, the journalist community about night games because they got to stay up late. And sure, we'll be up super late on Saturday night working. But it is kind of nice that we get to watch some of these games earlier because there's really not a whole lot to do in our world, you know, until the game kicks off that you're actually covering.
Yeah, it's really good to have the Big Ten back and actually catching a lot of these games around the country because in past years, when you're at the Michigan game or on game day, you really don't see any other college football games around the country. So it's going to be nice watching all these games in the afternoon. I'm just looking at the slate now, and there's several outstanding Big Ten games that I'm looking forward to seeing. It's not the same in college football with the Big Ten not playing. So it was nice having the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, but again, it's just not the same. And now that the Big Ten's back, it finally feels like college football again, and it feels like a college football Saturday should.
It sure does. It sure does. So let's get into some of these games. We'll start with Friday night. Illinois at Wisconsin. Wisconsin 19.5 point favorites. 8 p.m. on Big Ten Network, so that's going to kick off the Big Ten slate. And, man, Wisconsin looking for some revenge here. We know Illinois pulled off that upset last season. Wisconsin 19.5 point favorites. I'll say that they have a personal vendetta against the Fighting Lovie Smiths, and they come out and win this game by 3 touchdowns or more.
Couldn't agree more. This is going to be a blowout. I think Wisconsin wins by somewhere in the 24-28 range. I actually like this Illinois team a little bit, though, with Brandon Peters at quarterback. They went to a bowl game last year, Mike Epstein at running back. But I think this Wisconsin team is going to be really good. Jack Cohn, their senior quarterback's out, but they're going to be starting. Graham Mertz is a redshirt freshman. He's one of the biggest high school quarterbacks that Wisconsin has ever signed. He was a borderline 5-star, sitting at number 42 overall in the country out of high school. So it's going to be interesting to see how he performs in his first career start. I think Wisconsin's going to pound the ball like they always do with Garrett Groshek and Nikia Watson, and I think they're going to run all over Illinois. And I think we're looking at something like a 38-10 final score.
Okay, there you have it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought Graham Mertz was going to actually take over that starting job at some point this season anyway. Jack Cohn is a solid game manager, but you lose Jonathan Taylor, you might need some more playmaking ability out of that quarterback spot for Wisconsin. So he is thrust into that job right away. Saturday at noon, the game of the week in all of college football. Rutgers traveling to East Lansing to take on the Michigan State Spartans, both teams with high hopes this season. Year 1 for Mel Tucker, year 1 for Greg Schiano. Michigan State, the 13.5 point favorites at home in a rivalry game. They're fighting for that the situation trophy. Man, give me Rutgers. Give me Rutgers to keep it within 14 here, and I'm taking a look at the over-under total of 44.5. I think this is going to be a under that 44.5.
I agree. I think that 13.5 point spread is too big. I think MSU comes out on top in this one, but only by 7 or 10 points. Could this game be any uglier heading into this one? I don't know if either team is going to score a touchdown. How about first 1 to 2 wins, man? This is going to be just a flat out ugly game on Saturday. I feel like it's going to be a 14-7 or 14-3 type of final score. I know Greg Schiano's at Rutgers now. 2 first-year head coaches with Mel Tucker at MSU. But, man, I think this is going to be an ugly, ugly game, and I would be surprised if either team scores 20 in this one.
Yeah, it is going to be ugly. I think ugly is a great word to describe it, but that is the game of the week in all of college football, so all eyes will be on Spartan Stadium. Yeah, that's about it on that game. But I think Rutgers is going to keep it close, just like you do. Nebraska, Ohio State. Nebraska, you wanted a college football season. You got it. You're heading to Columbus in week 1, noon on Fox. Ohio State, 26-point favorites. I learned this last year. Ohio State, I think they covered like almost every spread the entire season last year. There wasn't a ton of hopes at the beginning of the season that they were going to be what they were, in the few years prior to that. But then Justin Fields emerged as a Heisman finalist and Heisman Trophy caliber player, and they just started covering every single spread and winning every game by huge margins. So I don't think it's going to be any different. And Scott Frost, welcome to the 2020 Big Ten season. I think Ohio State wins by 26 plus.
I think they win by maybe even 50 plus. This has the feel of a 62-10 type of game or something like that. Nebraska just is not good, and they haven't been good under Scott Frost. I actually picked them to beat Ohio State heading into that big night game in Lincoln last year. We didn't know how good Ohio State was, and we didn't know how bad Nebraska was, and that was an absolute blowout. I think it's going to be more of the same in Columbus, so I'm picking Ohio State with something like a 62-10 final score or somewhere in that range, but I think it says more about how bad Nebraska is than how good Ohio State is.
You want to make a bet on it? Give me 50 points in Nebraska.
So I am done with betting, seeing as how Chris Dallas rubbed it in my face every single time I lost a bet to him, so I'm not falling for that one again.
All right. Well, I'll get you to make a bet at some point this season, and we'll do a lunch bet. We'll bring it back.
Not
Let's
happening.
see.
And plus, I would never bet in Ohio State's favor, so that one isn't happening either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, well, the sneakiest game of the day, which I think is going to be a fun one leading into the Michigan-Minnesota game, 3:30 on Fox Sports 1 in Bloomington. Number 9 Penn State, 5.5-point favorites on the road at Indiana. This is an Indiana team that really is going to have probably its best year, in my opinion, under Tom Allen. The best year in a long time. They have a lot of talent there. Michael Penix is healthy at quarterback. You have Whop Philyor, one of my favorite names to say in all of college football at wide receiver. He was a Biletnikoff Award finalist last season. And a defense that returns a lot more depth than they've had in recent years. They've kind of been pretty thin at most positions on the defense in recent years, but they have loaded up a little bit. It's going to be a challenge for Michigan in week 3 to go back to Bloomington for a second straight year. Give me Indiana to cover the 5.5-point spread and keep it close. Penn State, is without Micah Parsons, their All-American linebacker who opted out of the season, and also Journey Brown, their stud running back who was expected to have a big year, is out right now indefinitely with an injury. So give me Indiana here, and they might just win this game here in the opener.
Are you picking them straight up to win?
No, I'll just pick them to cover the 5.5.
Okay, fair enough. This feels like a typical Indiana game going in where they're playing a really good team and they have a very solid chance to win, but they come up just short. I think that's exactly how it's going to play out on Saturday in Bloomington. I'm very high on this Indiana team as well. This could be their best team since 1993. So last year when they won 8 games was their best season since 1993. But, man, I just feel like they're going to come up just short yet again. Penn State has a lot of good players on offense, a lot of key returnees, and Sean Clifford. And even with Journey Brown out, they still have 2 good running backs in Devin Ford and Noah Kane, Jahan Dotson at receiver, Pat Fryermuth at tight end, arguably the best tight end in the country. So I think Indiana just comes up just short in this one, but I'm with you, and I would not be surprised one bit if they win this one, and I actually think this game is a complete toss-up.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun one to watch. I think it could go either way, too. I'm going to safe pick and just go with Indiana to keep it really, really close, maybe lose by a field goal, but they could certainly win this game, and they finally need to win a big game. And I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, you probably hope they just win this one, so maybe they flounder against Michigan in week 3, and they're not still searching for that big win. But it is going to be a fun one there in Bloomington. We'll move on to the 3:30. This will be going on at the same time as that game. This one on Big Ten Network, Iowa at Purdue. Purdue is 3-point underdogs at home to Iowa. This is another toss-up type of game for me. Jeff Brom, Purdue head coach, is out with COVID-19, and he will. I saw he was appealing to try to communicate with his team virtually during the game. I don't know if he got that appeal or if there's been an answer yet by the Big Ten, but that guy wants to coach under any circumstance. I mean, he's the guy that was concussed like crazy in the XFL and said he would, do I or do I not have a pulse? So, and is this or is this not the XFL? One of the all-time football guy quotes by Jeff Brom. So give me Purdue. They're going to play for Jeff Brom. They're going to win this game at home. And them, like Indiana, they're searching for some big wins here. They need a bounce-back season. So give me Purdue to win this game against Iowa. And I know I think I saw earlier that you said that you're feeling similarly on this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to agree with you again, but I'm in the same boat. I think this game is a toss-up. I'm really high on this Iowa team, and I think they could be very similar to the team who won 10 games last year, but I'm picking Iowa to win a very, very tight one. Like you said, Jeff Brom probably won't be there. Let him coach, man. Give the guy a break, but the word on the street is that Rondell Moore isn't going to play either. So there's no confirmation on that, but he has been spotted in street clothes. We'll see if he suits up for Purdue. Purdue also has question marks at quarterback. They don't know yet if Jack Plummer, Austin Burton, or who will be their quarterback quite yet. Iowa's breaking in a new quarterback as well in redshirt sophomore Spencer Petras. But, man, that stout Iowa defense and what's probably going to be a heavy run game for Iowa, I think gets it done in this one. But like you, I would not be one bit surprised if Purdue pulls this out.
Yeah, the Rondell Moore thing is intriguing, but, they got David Bell at wide receiver. They can do some things there. And that'll be an interesting one. I'll go with the home team. I'm interested to see how much home teams actually have an advantage this year. So I think we've agreed on every pick. So Maryland at Northwestern 11-point favorites. I'm a little higher on Northwestern than a lot of people this year. They got Peyton Ramsey, grad transfer quarterback from Indiana, in there behind center, Pat Fitzgerald, and those guys. But I don't want to agree with you. So who are you picking in this game? I'll take the opposite side.
I'm picking Northwestern to win by 10. So the spread's 11. This Northwestern can't be any worse than they were last year. They went 3-9. They're going to be better with Peyton Ramsey at quarterback, but man, that offense was atrocious. It'll be better, but that's really not saying much. This is still going to be an offensively challenged team, I think, but Maryland's a disaster. After that hot start that they had last year, they really fell apart, and then they had a ton of offseason attrition, including their quarterback, Josh Jackson. So these are two of the worst teams in the Big Ten, in my opinion, and Northwestern wins an ugly one. And really the only intrigue surrounding this game is which game will be uglier, this one or the MSU-Rutgers game.
Game 7:30 on Big Ten Network. I'm so glad that you took Maryland to barely keep it inside that number, that 11 number. So Northwestern, I'll take them to win by a couple touchdowns. I am on the Fighting Pat Fitzgeralds to win that game by a couple touchdowns. So I'm glad that you did that. And then Michigan, Minnesota, we won't give our picks. It'll be out tomorrow in our staff predictions article. Chris Ball is going to whip that one up. Always a great read. Always good for a couple, good little satire, a bit of satire in that article. But let's finish with our over-unders. We're bringing this segment back. If you were with us all the way back to last season, which feels like forever ago, we would pick a few over-unders every week regarding the Michigan game. So I'm going to throw these at you, Austin. You can go, and then I'll give mine. But I came up with these. Mr. Austin Fox has no idea what they're going to be. Let's go over-under. Joe Milton, 210 passing yards.
Let's see. I'll take the push. I think he finishes with 210 exactly. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go under, but slightly under. That 210 is a great number. It could easily go either way, but like I said, I think they're going to try and just have him manage the game, keep the ball on the ground, and I think he finishes with right around 200 yards.
Okay, I'm going the over on that. I think he's going to hit on a deep ball like I mentioned earlier. I think that's pretty high in this game, and I think he's going to play overall a pretty good game. Jim Harbaugh said, throw a talented guy out there, you let him compete, you see what happens. They're going to let it rip, and I think he used those words as well. And I think we'll see Joe Milton pass for some good amount of yardage, but I think they're still going to protect them a little bit by running the football, and that's something you have to do, whether or not the fans complain about too much running or not. If it gets you the win, then you will take that every day of the week. And speaking of running, our next over-under, rushing yards for Michigan, this is pretty high, but 175.
Man, that's a tough one too. Who's making these questions? I'm going to go under. I'm going to go slightly under. I think it's going to be tough sledding for this Michigan offense at times on Saturday night, but again, barely. I think they'll finish right around that 150, 160-yard rushing range, so I'm going to go slightly under, but again, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if they get in a rhythm on the ground and do finish with more than 175.
All right, we're on the opposite side of that again, so I'm slightly over the 175. I think with Minnesota only having one returning starter on the defensive line, only two guys returning in the front seven, Michigan's going to kind of have its way in the running game. Even with four new starters on the offensive line, the one concern I have with Michigan's offensive line on Saturday night is pass protecting up the middle with guys like Chuck Filiaga and Andrew Vistardis, who you hear good things about them and about how they're doing in practice, but Chuck Filiaga is a big guy. I've had questions for a while about his lateral quickness, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can protect up the middle. But I'm going to go with rushing yards. I think this offensive line is going to turn out some pretty big holes here, and we've mentioned it a few times. We like that stable of backs Michigan has to run through those holes. Give me over 175 barely. I'll say under 200, but somewhere up there close to 200. We talked about how important the turnover margin is earlier in the show. Michigan to win the turnover margin by a half of a turnover.
Wow, these are incredibly difficult. I'm going to say they win that one. I think they take care of the ball for the most part on Saturday night. I think Don Brown's defense forces at least one turnover, preferably more. I think Tanner Morgan's got a pick in them, whether that be Hawkins or Hill or Gray or whoever in that secondary. So I'm going to say Michigan wins that one.
Okay, I think so too. I think they'll win it by one, and that's going to be a key to the game, as I mentioned earlier, and one of the reasons why Michigan will come out with a close victory on Saturday night. I'll go over the half turnover. Michigan wins the turnover battle by one. They turn it over once or twice, but I think Minnesota will as well, and we will see Michigan win the turnover battle. Rashad Bateman, 1.5 touchdowns.
Under. I'm definitely going under on that one. I don't think this Minnesota team will go crazy and score a lot of points on Saturday, and they're going to be blanketing Bateman like crazy. They're going to have, I bet, 2 sets of eyes on him at all times. So I'm going under on that one. He might get his 1 touchdown, but I'd be surprised if he gets 2.
Yeah, this was a little high. I think, if there was an actual prop bet on this, it would be lower and probably be around 1. But I'm actually going to go with over here at 2. And that's not the worst thing in the world. As I mentioned, he could get 150 yards on you as long as he doesn't break those for long touchdowns. I'm predicting 2 touchdowns from him, but I think that, with his height and with his ball catching ability and, the way that he's more of a possession type receiver, I know he made big plays a lot last year and he's got the speed, but I think he's going to score some touchdowns in the red zone area, but that's okay because I think Michigan's going to put up some points, and this is going to be a game where there's going to be over 50 points scored by total. So that's okay. He's going to get their 2 touchdowns. They're going to have a couple more, but I think Michigan is still going to be able to come out with a win. Again, our final score predictions will be in that article tomorrow. Here's another one. Minnesota, 125 rushing yards.
I'm going to say under. I'm really high on this Michigan defense in their front 7, so I think they slow down this Minnesota rushing attack. Rodney Smith ran for over 1,000 yards last year, but he graduated and he's gone. So Muhammad Ibrahim, the new starting running back, has plenty of experience, but he's not what Rodney Smith was last year. So I'm going to say that they hold them under that amount.
Okay. I know I'm right at that 125. I mean, I could go push. Sake of argument, I'll go like 130, a slight over, but that's just to contradict you and, hopefully get myself a win on one of these over-unders here. So it's going to be close there. And I do like Michigan's front. I think it's going to be really stout. Would it totally shock you if Michigan holds them to like 80?
No, not at all. I could see this Michigan front 7 having a great game and really shutting down this Minnesota rushing attack. So that really wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Definitely, especially I like those ends. I like Josh Ross, Cam McGrone in the middle, Michael Barrett at Viper, Carlo Kemp at the nose. You got some dudes there, as John Brown would say. And the last one I just talked about it, 54.5 is the over-under, the total points scored in this game. I'm going with the over slightly on this one. Seems high for a Big Ten game, but I think there's going to be some fireworks. I think there's going to be some points scored on Saturday night.
I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think it's going to be under. I really like Michigan's defense and don't see Minnesota's offense putting up a ton of points, but I think Michigan's offense could struggle at times as well and really have a difficult time finding the end zone. So I think the final score in this game will be with both teams somewhere in the 20s.
Okay. Well, we're at odds on a few of these over-unders. So, man, 2 days away until Michigan football. Austin, any tips for anyone out there that's going to be tailgating from home? What should they be making on their grills on Saturday?
Brats are a must, man. You need the hot dogs. You need the coolers full. You need that Busch Light, plenty full in that cooler. So you need a football. Just have a good time, man. There's nothing like tailgating before college football Saturday, before a Michigan football Saturday. It really doesn't get any better than that. So that's the best possible advice that I could give someone.
Absolutely. We should get Busch Light as a sponsor.
I would be good with that, and I bet they'd be up for it. So I would have no problem whatsoever doing that.
All right. Well, we'll make a few calls on that, and hopefully next week we'll have some good news on Busch Light being a sponsor. But just to be clear, they are not currently a sponsor.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah, exactly, of this show. So Michigan, Minnesota, 7:30 ABC. It is going to be a fun one, so everybody stay tuned for that. We have all the coverage over at thewolverine.com. Again, you can use the promo code UM12 for one to get your first year annual subscription for just $12. That's $1 per month. That is a savings of $87 in your first year. So that is promo code UM12FOR1. Become a subscriber today. Again, head over to thewolverine.com for that coverage. But we'll talk to everybody next week. Michigan State week, and hopefully for Michigan fans' sake that we will be discussing a Michigan victory over Minnesota.